The cashier's scanner beeped rhythmically as I unloaded my cart, the mundane sound of a Tuesday afternoon grocery run. I was reaching for the pasta when I heard it. A laugh I'd know anywhere, the kind that starts in the chest and bubbles up with genuine warmth. My son's laugh. I turned, my hand frozen on a box of penne, and there he was. Daniel. My beautiful boy who I hadn't seen in person for 6 months, not since I'd wired him $50,000 for his daughter's emergency surgery. Except he wasn't alone. Walking beside him, holding his hand and giggling, was a little girl. About 4 years old with perfect pigtails and rosy cheeks, skipping along without a care in the world. The same little girl whose medical crisis had required every penny of my retirement savings. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. 6 months earlier, my phone had rung at 2 in the morning. Nothing good ever comes from a call at that hour. I'd fumbled for it in the darkness of my bedroom, my heart already racing before I even saw Daniel's name on the screen. Mom. His voice had been ragged, barely holding together. Mom, I need help. It's Lily. She's in the hospital. Lily was my granddaughter. I'd only seen her twice, both times through video calls that Daniel kept frustratingly brief. He'd moved to Portland 3 years ago for work, he said, and the distance made regular visits difficult. But she was my only grandchild, and I loved her with a fierceness that surprised me. What happened? I'd asked, already throwing off the covers and turning on the lamp. Is she okay? It's her heart. The words came out in a sob. They found a defect. She needs surgery immediately or she could die. They're saying it has to happen within the week. My own heart had felt like it stopped. Oh my God. Daniel, what do you need? What can I do? The surgery costs $50,000 up front. Our insurance is denying the claim, saying it's a pre-existing condition we should have disclosed. Mom, I don't have that kind of money. I've tried everything. The hospital won't do it without payment. I'd sat there in my bedroom, surrounded by the life I'd built over 62 years. The house I'd paid off after my husband Richard died. The careful savings I'd accumulated by living modestly, planning for a retirement that would be comfortable if not extravagant. And my granddaughter, a child I barely knew but loved completely, dying because of money. I'll get it to you, I'd said without hesitation. Give me until tomorrow to arrange the transfer. Mom, I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm telling you. Family takes care of family. That's what your father would have wanted. The next day, I'd gone to my bank and withdrawn $50,000 from my retirement account. The penalties had been steep, and my financial advisor had practically begged me to reconsider, to at least verify the situation first. But how do you verify your own son's desperation? How do you ask for proof when a child's life hangs in the balance? I'd wired the money that afternoon. Daniel had called me crying, thanking me, promising he'd pay me back somehow. The surgery was scheduled for that Friday, he'd said. He'd call me after with updates. Friday came and went. I didn't hear from him. I told myself he was exhausted, overwhelmed with hospital vigils and medical decisions. Saturday I sent a text asking how Lily was doing. He responded briefly that she was in recovery, things had gone well, but it was touch and go. Sunday brought silence. Monday I tried calling but it went to voicemail. For weeks I'd worried, my imagination conjuring every possible complication. Then, finally, a month after the surgery, Daniel had video called. Lily had been in the frame for maybe 30 seconds, looking perfectly healthy, before Daniel said she was tired and needed to rest. The calls after that became shorter, more sporadic. Always an excuse why I couldn't talk to Lily for long. She was napping. She was at a friend's house. She was doing homework. I'd accepted it because what choice did I have? I told myself that Daniel was being protective, that the surgery had traumatized him and he was struggling to cope. I made excuses for my own son because the alternative, that something else was going on, was too painful to consider. And now here he was in the produce section of a grocery store in my town, 200 miles from Portland, with the child whose life I'd saved. The child who looked radiantly, impossibly healthy. No surgical scars visible on her chest, though of course they might be hidden under her shirt. No pallor of recent illness. No caution in her movements like you'd expect from a child who'd undergone major heart surgery just 6 months ago. I watched them for a moment, hidden behind an end cap of canned vegetables. Daniel was examining tomatoes while Lily danced around him, begging for cookies. Their body language spoke of normalcy, of an ordinary father and daughter on an ordinary shopping trip. Nothing about them suggested recent trauma or medical crisis. Daniel. I stepped around the corner, my voice steadier than I felt. He turned, and the color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. His hand tightened on the shopping cart, knuckles going white. Mom, what are you doing here? I live here, I said, moving closer. Question is, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Portland. Lily had stopped her dancing and was staring up at me with curious brown eyes. She was even prettier up close, with Daniel's dimples and what I assumed was her mother's delicate features. We're just visiting. Daniel's voice was too high too quick. Passing through on our way to Seattle. Business trip. I looked down at Lily, my heart doing complicated things in my chest. Hi, sweetheart. I'm your grandmother. Lily's face scrunched up in confusion. She looked up at Daniel. Daddy, I thought Grammy lived in heaven with Grandpa. The words hit me like a physical blow. I watched Daniel's face cycle through panic, anger, and resignation in the span of 3 seconds. Lily, honey, why don't you go pick out some apples? Daniel's voice shook as he gently pushed her toward the apple display. I need to talk to this lady for a minute. This lady. Not your grandmother. Not even my mom. This lady. Lily skipped off, oblivious to the tension, and Daniel turned to face me fully. The boy I'd raised, who'd been sweet and thoughtful and always so eager to please, looked at me with the eyes of a stranger. How much of it was a lie? I asked quietly. The surgery? The insurance denial? All of it. He couldn't meet my eyes. Mom, it's complicated. $50,000, Daniel. My entire retirement savings. I gave you everything because I thought my granddaughter was dying. I pointed at Lily, who was carefully examining each apple like she was selecting jewels. Does she even know who I am? Daniel's jaw worked, but no sound came out. That was answer enough. The grocery store suddenly felt too bright, too loud. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and somewhere a child was crying for candy, and my world was tilting on its axis because my son, my only child, had stolen from me. Not borrowed. Not desperately needed. Stolen. I need to go. Daniel grabbed the cart handle. We're not done talking about this. His eyes flashed with something that might have been guilt or might have been anger. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That I made a mistake? Would that give you your money back? I want the truth. My voice rose slightly, drawing looks from other shoppers. I want to know why my son looked me in the eye and lied about his daughter dying. Daniel glanced at Lily, who was now juggling 2 apples and giggling at her own game. His face softened for a moment, genuine love shining through the layers of deception. Then it hardened again when he looked back at me. You wouldn't understand. Try me. He laughed, but it was bitter and sharp. You with your paid-off house and your comfortable life. You've never struggled a day since Dad died. That insurance money set you up nice. So this is about the life insurance? About money you thought you deserved? Daniel's face flushed red. I deserved something. 28 years of being the perfect son, playing by all your rules, living up to Dad's memory. And what did I get? A handshake at graduation and good luck figuring it out on your own. I put you through college. I helped with your first apartment deposit. I never once made you feel like you owed me anything. Exactly. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You gave me just enough to get by, but never enough to actually build something. Never enough to feel secure. Do you know what it's like to watch your friends' parents hand them down payments for houses while I'm scraping together rent? I stared at him, this man I'd raised, and realized I was looking at someone I didn't know. Someone who measured love in dollar signs and kept score of perceived slights from childhood. So you lied about Lily being sick. You made me believe my granddaughter was dying so you could what? Buy a house? Start a business? Daniel's silence was damning. Oh my God. The realization hit me like ice water. There was no surgery at all. Lily's heart is fine. He reached for my arm, but I jerked away. Mom, please. I needed that money. Things were desperate. Things were desperate. I repeated, my voice hollow. So desperate you couldn't just ask me? So desperate you had to make me think a child was dying? You would have said no. You would have lectured me about financial responsibility and making my own way like you always do. So you traumatized me instead. I spent 6 months barely sleeping, worrying about Lily, replaying every video call looking for signs she was declining. I cried myself to sleep thinking about losing her. Daddy, look. Lily came bounding back with a bag of apples clutched to her chest. Can we get these? The red ones taste the best. Daniel's face transformed instantly, all the anger melting into a warm smile. Of course, sweet pea. Those are perfect. I watched him interact with her, this loving father act, and felt sick. How much of his affection was real? How much was performance? If he could lie to me so convincingly about her health, what else was false? Lily looked up at me again, her head tilted. Are you my daddy's friend? Something in my chest cracked.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
I knelt down to her level, ignoring Daniel's sharp intake of breath. I'm your grandmother, sweetheart. Your daddy's mom. Her eyes went wide. Really? But Daddy said you lived far away in heaven. I do live far away, but not in heaven. I live right here in this town. I've always wanted to meet you properly. Lily processed this, her little face serious. Do you have cookies at your house? Grandmas are supposed to have cookies. Despite everything, I almost smiled. I could have cookies. I'd have an entire bakery if it meant spending time with you. Daniel grabbed the cart roughly. We need to go. Now. I stood slowly, my knees protesting. You're not keeping her from me. Not after what you've done. Watch me. He started pushing the cart toward the checkout lanes. Come on, Lily. But Lily was looking between us with that peculiar intuition children have, sensing the tension even if she didn't understand it. Why is the lady crying? I touched my face and realized tears were streaming down my cheeks. I'm crying because I love you very much, sweetheart. And I've missed you terribly. Daniel's face twisted with something that might have been shame. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, we're staying at the Comfort Inn on Riverside Drive. Room 214. If you want to talk, really talk, come by tonight at 8. Lily will be asleep by then. He walked away before I could respond, Lily waving goodbye over his shoulder with apple-stained fingers. I stood there in the produce section, surrounded by gleaming vegetables and cheerful sale signs, feeling like I'd been hollowed out. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Patricia. Still on for dinner tonight? We can finally catch up properly. I stared at the message, thinking about the plans I'd made. The normal life I'd been living just 10 minutes ago. Everything had changed. Everything was different now. I need to rain check, I typed back. Family emergency. Because that's what this was. An emergency. My son had stolen from me, lied to me, kept my granddaughter from me. But he'd also just given me a room number and a time. An opening. A chance to understand why and maybe possibly to find a way forward. I finished my shopping in a daze, barely aware of what I was putting in my cart. At home, I unloaded groceries mechanically, my mind replaying every interaction with Daniel over the past 6 months, looking for clues I'd missed. Signs of the lie. The truth was I hadn't missed them. I'd ignored them. Because acknowledging that my son might be lying to me about something so serious meant acknowledging that I'd failed as a mother somehow. That the boy I'd raised with love and attention and everything I could give had grown into a man capable of cruelty. Richard would have known what to do. My husband had always been better with Daniel, understanding him in ways I couldn't. After Richard died when Daniel was 17, something had shifted in our relationship. Daniel had grown distant, angry in subtle ways. I'd attributed it to grief, giving him space to process the loss of his father. Maybe I'd given him too much space. Maybe in trying not to smother him, I'd abandoned him. Or maybe a darker voice whispered in my head, some people are just selfish regardless of how they're raised. At 7:30, I drove to the Comfort Inn. The parking lot was half full, rental cars and family vehicles with out-of-state plates. I sat in my car for 10 minutes watching people come and go, working up the courage to face whatever truth waited in room 214. At exactly 8 o'clock, I knocked on the door. Daniel opened it immediately like he'd been standing there waiting. He'd changed clothes, traded his grocery store casual for nicer pants and a button-down shirt. Like this was a business meeting instead of a confrontation with the mother he'd defrauded. Come in. His voice was flat, carefully neutral. The room was standard hotel fare. 2 double beds. One clearly for Lily with her stuffed animals arranged carefully on the pillow. A small table by the window. The television playing quietly, some nature documentary about ocean life. She's really asleep? I asked, glancing at the bathroom door. Out cold. She had a busy day. Daniel gestured to the table. Sit, please. We sat across from each other like adversaries instead of family. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Tell me everything, I said finally. From the beginning. The real story. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable in the dim lamplight. Where do you even want me to start? Start with whether Lily was ever sick at all. He shook his head. She's perfectly healthy. Never had a heart problem in her life. The confirmation hurt even though I'd already known. Hearing him say it out loud made it real. So the late night call, the desperate story, all of it was planned? Plan makes it sound calculated. Daniel rubbed his face tiredly. I was desperate, Mom. That part was true. Desperate for what? What was so important that you'd lie about your daughter dying? He stood abruptly, pacing to the window and staring out at the parking lot. I was in debt. Serious debt. The kind where men show up at your door making threats. What kind of debt? Gambling. His voice was barely audible. I got in over my head at the casinos. Started small just for fun, then kept chasing losses. Before I knew it, I owed $45,000 to people who don't take excuses for payment. The pieces started falling into place, creating a picture I didn't want to see. So you lied about Lily to pay off gambling debts. I needed the money fast. The threats were getting serious. They knew where Lily went to preschool, Mom. They knew our address, our schedule. I was terrified they'd hurt her to get to me. So you hurt me instead. Daniel flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I stood up, my voice rising. Explain to me how making your mother believe her granddaughter was dying wasn't hurting me. I thought if you knew the truth you wouldn't help. He turned to face me, his eyes red-rimmed. I knew you'd lecture me about gambling being irresponsible. You'd tell me I got myself into the mess and I needed to get myself out. Just like you always do. When have I ever refused to help you when you really needed it? Every time I've asked. His voice turned sharp. When I needed help with my car payment after I lost my job, you sent me articles about budgeting. When I asked for help with moving costs, you told me to downsize instead. You've always had this way of helping without actually helping, making it about teaching me lessons instead of just being there. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because there was truth in his words, even if the conclusion he'd drawn from them was wrong. I'd been trying to teach him independence, but he'd experienced it as rejection. So you decided to manipulate me into giving you money by exploiting my love for Lily. It worked, didn't it? He laughed bitterly. The second I said your granddaughter was sick, you didn't hesitate. No questions about my budgeting. No lectures about responsibility. Just immediate help. That's all I ever wanted, Mom. For you to just help without making me feel like I was failing. I sank back into the chair, feeling decades older than I had that morning. You don't understand what you've done. Those $50,000 weren't just money. That was my security. My retirement. My ability to take care of myself as I age. I'll pay you back. With what? More gambling winnings? I've stopped. His voice was fierce. The debt is paid. I'm in counseling. I haven't placed a bet since I paid off those men. But you also haven't told me the truth. For 6 months you've maintained this lie, letting me think Lily was recovering from major surgery. If I hadn't run into you today, how long would you have kept it going? Daniel had no answer for that. We sat in the heavy silence, the television's quiet narration about whale songs filling the void between us. Is Lily even living in Portland? I asked suddenly. Or was that a lie too? We're in Portland. That part's real. I have a job as a warehouse supervisor. Pays okay. And her mother? You've never mentioned her. Never once explained why Lily doesn't have a mom in her life. Daniel's face closed off. That's not relevant. I'm asking for the truth. All of it. No more lies. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then quietly, Sarah died when Lily was 6 months old. Drug overdose. The room felt like it was shrinking. Oh, Daniel. I'm so sorry. We weren't married. Barely together, really. Sarah struggled with addiction our entire relationship. I thought when Lily was born she'd clean up, but it got worse. I came home one day and found her gone. Lily was in her crib, screaming, hungry. She'd been alone for 6 hours. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me think everything was fine? As I was ashamed. His voice cracked. Ashamed that I'd gotten someone pregnant who wasn't stable. Ashamed that I couldn't help Sarah. Ashamed that I was raising a daughter alone and barely holding it together. You've always had such high standards, Mom. Such clear ideas about how things should be done. I couldn't face your disappointment. I stood and walked to where he stood by the window. Looking at him, I saw not the man who'd lied to me, but the boy who'd lost his father too young. The teenager who'd tried so hard to be strong when his world fell apart. The young man who'd been struggling alone because he thought asking for help was admitting defeat. Daniel, I said softly. I was never disappointed in you. I was always so proud. His shoulders started shaking and then he was crying. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from years of held-back pain. I pulled him into my arms like he was 5 years old again, and he folded into me, this grown man who was still my child. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I was so scared and so desperate and I didn't know what else to do. I held him while he cried, my own tears falling silently. We stood there in that hotel room, surrounded by the wreckage of our relationship, and I understood something crucial. Daniel had made terrible choices. He'd hurt me deeply. But he'd done it from a place of pain and fear, not malice. When his sobs finally subsided, I guided him back to the chairs. We need to figure out how to fix this. There's no fixing what I did. There's always a path forward. It might not be easy, and it won't erase what happened, but we're family. That means we don't give up on each other. Daniel wiped his face with the back of his hand. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not right now. But that doesn't mean we can't work toward a place where trust can be rebuilt. I paused, choosing my words carefully. But Daniel, there have to be conditions. Real changes. What kind of conditions? First, you continue with the counseling. Not just for the gambling, but for everything. The grief you never processed, the shame you've been carrying, all of it. He nodded. Already doing that. Second, I want to be part of Lily's life. Really part of it. Regular video calls, visits, holidays. I've missed enough of her childhood. I want that too. I never wanted to keep her from you. I just didn't know how to let you in without revealing everything. Third, I held his gaze. You pay me back. Not all at once. I understand that's not realistic. But we set up a payment plan. Something manageable that proves you're serious about making this right. How much? As much as you can afford. Even if it's just $100 a month. I need to see that you value what I sacrifice for you. I can do $200. He said it quickly, firmly. I'll cut back on everything else, but I can do $200 a month. Then that's what we'll do. I reached across the table and took his hand. This isn't going to be easy, Daniel. I'm hurt, deeply hurt. Trust takes time to rebuild. But I'm willing to try if you are. He squeezed my hand. I'll prove it to you, Mom. I swear. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I can be better than this. A small sound from the bed made us both turn. Lily was sitting up, rubbing her eyes, her hair mussed from sleep. Daddy? I heard crying. Daniel was at her side instantly, his voice gentle. It's okay, sweet pea. Everything's okay. Lily's eyes found me. Is the grandma lady still here? I walked over to the bed slowly, not wanting to frighten her. I'm still here, sweetheart. Lily studied me with those serious brown eyes. Are you really my grandma? My actual grandma? I am. The one Daddy said lived far away? Yes. Can I have a hug? My throat closed up completely. I knelt by the bed and opened my arms, and this little girl I barely knew launched herself into them. She smelled like kid shampoo and strawberry toothpaste, and holding her felt like holding every hope and dream I'd had since learning I would be a grandmother. When she pulled back, she looked between Daniel and me. Are you going to come visit us now? I hope so. If your daddy says it's okay. Daddy always says you're too busy. Lily's innocent observation hung in the air like an accusation. But you don't look too busy now. Daniel's face colored. I might have gotten some things wrong, Lily. Grandma would love to visit us more. Can she come for Christmas? Lily's excitement was pure and unguarded. I want to show her my room and my toys and my school. I would love that. I looked at Daniel over Lily's head. If your daddy is okay with that. He nodded. We'd love to have you. Lily settled back into bed, satisfied with these answers. Will you tell me a bedtime story? I sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her wild curls. What kind of story do you want to hear? One about you when you were little like me. So I told her about growing up on a farm, about the horse I'd loved, about learning to bake pies with my grandmother. Simple stories from a simpler time. Daniel sat in the chair nearby, listening to me spin tales from my childhood, and gradually the tension in the room eased. When Lily's breathing evened out in sleep, I stood carefully and moved toward the door. Daniel followed me out into the hallway, pulling the door almost closed behind us. Thank you. He said it simply. For giving me a chance. Don't make me regret it. I won't. He pulled out his phone. Here. I want to show you something. He pulled up his banking app and showed me his account balance. Then he opened his budgeting app, showing me spreadsheets of income and expenses, payment plans for debts, savings goals. The detailed organization of someone seriously trying to get their life together. I started this 3 months ago. When the guilt got too heavy, I knew I had to change even if you never found out what I'd done. Keep going. I said quietly. Keep working on yourself. For Lily. For you. And yes, for me too. I will. He hugged me then. Not the desperate embrace from earlier, but something steadier. Thank you for not giving up on me. As I drove home, my phone rang. Patricia. Everything okay? You never rain check without a reason. Family stuff. But I think it's going to be okay. Want to talk about it? I looked at the clock. Tomorrow. Over coffee. I have a lot to tell you. Back at my house, I sat in my living room and looked at my bank statements. $50,000 gone. But instead of feeling devastated like I had this morning, I felt something else. Not peace exactly, but possibility. Daniel had made terrible choices. He'd lied and manipulated and caused real harm. But he was also trying to change to be better. And I had a granddaughter who wanted me in her life. That was worth something. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. A photo of Lily asleep, peaceful in the hotel bed. The caption read, "Thank you for being the mom I needed, even when I didn't deserve it." I saved the photo and sent back a simple response. We're family. We figure it out. Because that was the truth at the core of all this pain. Family wasn't about never making mistakes. It was about choosing again and again to show up and do the hard work of loving each other through the mistakes. The next morning, I woke to a notification. $200 had been deposited in my account with the memo, "First payment." I'll never stop trying to make this right. It would take years to repay the money, longer still to rebuild the trust. But as I looked at that payment, that first step toward redemption, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. 3 weeks later, Daniel and Lily came to visit. Properly this time, planned and anticipated. I'd prepared the guest room with sheets I'd bought just for them. I'd stocked the pantry with Lily's favorite snacks, which Daniel had texted me about. And yes, I'd baked cookies. 'Cause Lily was right. Grandmas were supposed to have cookies. The visit was both wonderful and awkward. There were moments of genuine connection. Times when it felt like we were a real family. And there were moments of tension. Reminders of the breach that still existed between us. Lily had no idea about any of it, which was a mercy. She spent the weekend showing me her drawings, teaching me clapping games, and chattering about everything in her 4-year-old world. Watching Daniel with her, seeing the gentle patience and deep love in every interaction, made me believe that despite his mistakes, he was a good father. On their last evening after Lily was asleep in the guest room, Daniel and I sat on the back porch with tea. The late summer air was cooling, promising fall was on its way. I've been thinking about something. He said it casually, but I could hear the weight behind it. About moving back here. Closer to you. My heart jumped. Really? There's nothing keeping us in Portland except inertia. Being closer to family, to you, having that support system. I think it would be good for both of us. He paused. If you'd want that. I want that very much. It won't be immediate. I need to save up, find a job here, figure out the logistics. But maybe in the next year or so. We sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies begin their evening dance across the yard. A year ago, if someone had told me my son would steal $50,000 from me, I would have said I'd never forgive him. that some betrayals were too deep to overcome. But sitting there, planning a future where my son and granddaughter would be part of my daily life, I understood something about forgiveness. It wasn't about forgetting or excusing. It was about choosing to believe that people could change, that mistakes didn't define us forever, that love could be stronger than hurt. Mom, Daniel's voice was quiet. Do you think Dad would be disappointed in me? The question surprised me. I thought carefully before answering. Your father struggled with his own demons. He wasn't perfect either, though we've both idealized him since he died. He paused, then continued gently. I think he'd be proud that you faced your mistakes and are working to fix them. That takes more courage than never messing up in the first place. Daniel wiped at his eyes. I miss him. Me too. Every day. The first payment is good. But it's not just about the money, is it? No. It's about showing me you're serious about change. About rebuilding trust through consistent action over time. How long do you think it will take? For you to trust me again? I don't know. There's no timeline for this kind of healing. But every honest conversation we have, every promise you keep, every moment you show up as the man you're capable of being, we get a little closer. I can live with that. Good. Because that's all any of us can do. Show up, do the work, and hope it's enough. Inside, Lily called out in her sleep, a nonsense word followed by quiet again. Daniel stood to check on her, and I watched him go, this complicated man who was my son. Flawed, yes, but trying. And maybe that was all any parent could hope for in the end. 6 months after that first grocery store encounter, I received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a check for $200 as always, but also a letter written in Lily's careful, wobbly handwriting. Dear Grandma, thank you for being my grandma. I love when you visit. I love your cookies. I love your hugs. I love you. Love, Lily. Below it, in Daniel's handwriting, was a note. We've been approved for an apartment here. Moving date is September 1st. Can't wait to be closer to you. This time I'm getting it right. I put the letter on my refrigerator, held in place by a magnet Lily had made me. A painted handprint with her name written across the palm. Looking at it, at this evidence of a future we were building together, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not just hope. Certainty. That we would be okay. That family, with all its complications and hurts and betrayals, was worth fighting for. That love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other again and again, through all the messy, painful, beautiful moments that made up a life. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Lily wants to know if you can come to her pre-K graduation next month. Front row seat reserved for the world's best grandma. I'll be there. I typed back. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Because that was the truth. Whatever had been broken between us, whatever trust had been shattered, we were building something new from the pieces. Something that acknowledged the pain while refusing to be defined by it. I thought about that moment in the grocery store. The shock of seeing Daniel with the healthy child I believed was dying. How devastating it had been to realize the depth of his deception. If someone had told me then that 6 months later I'd be planning for him to move closer, that we'd be rebuilding our relationship, I wouldn't have believed them. But life had taught me that endings and beginnings weren't always clearly marked. That sometimes the worst moments could crack you open enough to let something better grow. That forgiveness wasn't weakness but a kind of strength I was only beginning to understand. Outside my window, the first leaves were turning, gold and red against the blue September sky. Change was coming. Not just in the weather but in my life. My son and granddaughter would be here soon. We'd figure out our new normal together. There would be challenges, certainly. Old hurts didn't disappear overnight. But there would also be Sunday dinners and bedtime stories. School plays and scraped knees. Birthday parties and ordinary Tuesdays. All the small moments that make up a family. I pulled out my calendar and wrote on September 1st in bold red letters, Daniel and Lily moved to town. New chapter begins. Then I closed the calendar and smiled. Because sometimes when everything falls apart, you get the chance to rebuild it better. Stronger. More honest. And that, I was learning, was a gift I hadn't known I needed. The grocery store encounter that had shattered my world had also, in its way, saved it. By forcing the truth into the light, by demanding honesty where there had been only lies, it had given us a chance to start over. To do it right this time. And that was worth more than $50,000. It was worth everything. The moving truck arrived on September 1st at exactly 9 in the morning. I'd been awake since 5, cleaning rooms that were already spotless, rearranging furniture that didn't need rearranging, doing anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spinning with anxious thoughts. Patricia had come over the night before to help me set up Lily's room, bringing fresh flowers and the kind of calm presence that comes from 40 years of friendship. "You're allowed to be nervous," she'd said, watching me fold and refold the same towel 3 times. "This is a big deal. What if it doesn't work out?" I'd asked, voicing the fear that had been growing steadily over the past month. What if having them close just makes everything harder? Patricia had taken the towel from my hands and set it firmly on the counter. "Then you'll figure it out. That's what you do, Margaret. You figure things out." Now, watching Daniel emerge from the truck's cab with Lily bouncing excitedly beside him, I felt that nervous energy transform into something else. Anticipation mixed with determination. This was happening. My family was here, and we were going to make it work because the alternative was unacceptable. "Grandma!" Lily came running across the lawn, her purple backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "We're here. We really live here now." I caught her in a hug, breathing in the scent of the strawberry shampoo that had become so familiar over the past months of visits. "You really do. Welcome home, sweetheart." Daniel approached more slowly, looking tired but content. The drive was long, but we made it. He glanced at the modest 2-story house I'd lived in for 30 years. "Thanks again for storing our stuff in your garage last week. Made the move a lot easier." Over the past month, Daniel had made 3 trips down, each time bringing boxes and furniture that I'd helped him stack carefully in my garage. It had been a practical arrangement, but it had also been something more. Practice runs. Chances for us to spend time together, to continue building the bridge between past hurt and future hope. "Let me help you unload." I started toward the truck, but Daniel shook his head. "The movers will handle it. They're just getting coffee. I wanted us to have a few minutes first." He pulled an envelope from his pocket. "This is for you." Inside was a check for $500. "Daniel, this is more than our agreement. I got a signing bonus at the new job. Wanted to put some of it toward what I owe you." His eyes met mine steadily. "Every extra dollar I can manage goes toward making this right." I folded the check carefully and put it in my pocket. The new job was as a logistics coordinator at a medical supply company, a significant step up from his warehouse supervisor position in Portland. Better pay, better benefits, and room for advancement. He'd been nervous about the interview, calling me 3 times the night before to practice his answers. "How does Lily feel about starting a new school?" I asked, watching her examine the flower beds along my front walk. "Excited and scared. You know how kids are." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of his father it made my chest ache. "I enrolled her at Riverside Elementary. The same school I went to, actually. Mrs. Patterson is still teaching kindergarten there. She was your teacher." Daniel's face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Really? Man, she must be ancient by now. She's 72 and sharper than people half her age. I see her at the library sometimes. I might have mentioned that my granddaughter would be in her class this fall." "Mom." Daniel's voice held affectionate exasperation. "You didn't have to pull strings." "I didn't pull anything. I simply informed an old friend that she'd have the pleasure of teaching a very special little girl. What she does with that information is entirely up to her." The moving truck returned with 2 burly men, who immediately began the careful choreography of emptying the truck's contents. Daniel directed them with surprising efficiency, pointing out which boxes went where, which furniture needed to go upstairs. I took Lily inside to show her around the neighborhood from my kitchen window, pointing out the park 3 blocks away, the ice cream shop that had been there since I was a child, the library where story time happened every Thursday. "Can we go to the park today?" Lily pressed her nose against the window glass, leaving a small smudge I'd clean later. "After your dad gets settled in your new apartment. But tomorrow, definitely tomorrow." "Will there be other kids there?" "Usually lots of them. I think you'll make friends quickly." Lily considered this seriously. "What if they don't like me?" The vulnerability in her voice reminded me that underneath the bubbly excitement was a little girl who'd already experienced more loss and change than many adults. I knelt down beside her, meeting her eyes. "Some kids will like you right away. Some might take a little time to warm up. That's okay. The important thing is being yourself. Can you do that? Think so. She bit her lip. Daddy says I talk too much sometimes. Your daddy talks a lot too. It runs in the family. And talking isn't bad, Lily. It means you have things to share with the world. That's a gift. Really? Really? Daniel appeared in the doorway, slightly sweaty from helping with the heavier furniture. Lily, want to come see your new room? The movers just put your bed in. Lily shot off like a rocket, her moment of vulnerability forgotten in childhood enthusiasm. Daniel and I followed more slowly, walking the 3 blocks to the small apartment complex where he'd rented a 2-bedroom unit on the 2nd floor. The apartment was modest but clean, with good light and a small balcony that overlooked the complex's courtyard. The movers had done their job well, placing furniture according to Daniel's instructions, stacking boxes in appropriate rooms. It would take weeks to fully unpack and settle in, but the bones of a home were already visible. Lily's room was painted a soft lavender, and someone had clearly taken care to make it welcoming. Daniel had hung curtains with butterflies on them, and her bed was already made with her favorite unicorn comforter. This is perfect. Lily spun in a circle, arms outstretched. Can Grandma help me unpack my toys? If she wants to. Daniel looked at me questioningly. I'd love to. We spent the next 3 hours transforming cardboard boxes into a living space. I helped Lily arrange her stuffed animals and books while Daniel tackled the kitchen. At some point, Patricia showed up with sandwiches and cold drinks, her usual perfect timing making me grateful for her friendship all over again. You must be Daniel. Patricia extended her hand with her characteristic warmth. I've heard a lot about you. Daniel shook her hand, and I caught the slight tension in his shoulders, wondering probably what exactly Patricia had heard. The truth was I told her everything. Patricia had been my rock through the initial devastation, through the slow rebuilding, through all the complicated emotions that came with forgiving someone who'd hurt you deeply. All good things, I promise. Patricia winked at me. Well, mostly good things. Margaret has a strict policy against completely whitewashing people's mistakes. Daniel relaxed slightly, appreciating the honesty. I'm working on being worthy of the good things. We ate lunch on Daniel's small balcony, Lily chattering about her new room, her new school, her new life. The sun was warm, and for a moment, everything felt normal. Easy. Like we were just a regular family sharing a regular day. After lunch, Patricia headed home, and I helped Daniel unpack his kitchen essentials. We worked in comfortable silence, broken occasionally by Lily's songs drifting from her room where she was arranging and rearranging her toy horses. I have something I want to talk to you about. Daniel said it carefully, like he was approaching a skittish animal. About the money I owe you. You're already paying me back. More than we agreed on, actually. I know. But I did the math. At $500 a month it would take me over 8 years to pay you back completely. That's too long. You'll be 70 by then. Daniel, I'm not worried about the timeline. I'm more concerned about you being able to actually afford life while paying me back. He set down the box he'd been unpacking and turned to face me fully. I talked to a financial advisor. Someone my company provides access to as part of the benefits package. She helped me create a plan. Okay. I'm setting up an automatic transfer to you. $750 a month. It's aggressive, but it's manageable with my new salary. That cuts the payback time to about 5.5 years. Daniel, that's a lot of money. What about emergencies? What about Lily's needs? That's factored in. I have an emergency fund building separately, and Lily's needs are covered in the budget. He pulled out his phone and showed me spreadsheets that were even more detailed than the ones he'd shown me months ago. Color-coded categories, projections, savings goals. When did you become so organized? When I realized that being disorganized almost cost me everything that mattered. He looked at me earnestly. I need to do this, Mom. I need to pay you back as quickly as I reasonably can. Not just for you but for me. So I can look at myself in the mirror and know I'm making it right. I studied his face, seeing the determination there. The same stubborn streak his father had possessed, but channeled now towards something constructive instead of self-destructive. Okay. $750 a month. But if anything comes up, if Lily needs something or there's an emergency, you tell me. We adjust if we need to. Deal. We sealed it with a handshake, formal and slightly ridiculous in the middle of his half-unpacked kitchen. Lily wandered in, took one look at us, and giggled. Why are you shaking hands? Your family. Out of the mouths of children. Sometimes family does business together, I explained. We're making an agreement. About what? About me being a responsible adult. Daniel scooped her up, making her shriek with laughter. Speaking of which, how do you feel about helping me build your new bookshelf? The afternoon melted into evening. I stayed longer than I'd planned, unable to pull myself away from the warmth of being needed. Daniel struggled with furniture assembly, while I supervised Lily's hand washing before dinner. We ordered pizza because none of us had the energy to cook, eating it straight from the box while sitting on Daniel's new couch. This feels right. Daniel said it quietly, more to himself than to us, but I heard it. Being here. Starting over properly. I didn't respond, just squeezed his hand briefly. Some things didn't need words. At 8:30, Lily was drooping, exhausted from excitement and activity. Daniel carried her to her new room for the first night's sleep in their new home. I hung back, giving them privacy for bedtime rituals, but I could hear his soft voice reading her a story through the thin walls. When he emerged 20 minutes later, he found me washing the pizza plates in his sink. You don't have to do that. I know, but I wanted to. He joined me, drying as I washed. Another small moment of domestic normalcy that felt precious because of how hard one it was. Thank you for today. For being here. For helping make this feel less scary. It's scary for you? Terrifying. What if I mess this up? What if being close to you makes it harder for both of us? What if Lily has a hard time adjusting and I can't help her? I handed him the last plate. Then we figure it out together. That's what family does. Even when one member of the family catastrophically betrayed the other's trust. The bluntness of it surprised me. We danced around the reality of what had happened for months, using softer language. Mistakes. Poor choices. This was the first time Daniel had used the word betrayal. Even then, I dried my hands on a dish towel, choosing my words carefully. What you did was a betrayal. That's the truth, and pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone. But people aren't just their worst moments, Daniel. You're also the man who works 2 jobs to make things right. Who goes to counseling every week. Who's building a real life for his daughter. Both things can be true. How do you do that? Hold both the hurt and the forgiveness at the same time? I don't know that I've figured it out completely. Some days are easier than others. But I think it helps that you're not asking me to forget what happened. You're showing me through your actions that you're different now. That makes space for forgiveness to grow. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Dad would have known what to say right now. Something wise about second chances or redemption. Your father struggled with his own demons. I've never told you this, but he had a gambling problem too. Years before you were born. It nearly destroyed us. Daniel's head snapped up. What? I moved to his small living room and sank onto the couch. I think it's time you knew the whole truth about your father. He wasn't perfect, Daniel. He made mistakes that hurt me deeply. I told him things I'd kept secret for over 3 decades. About Richard's gambling in his 20s. About the debt collectors who'd called our home. About the lies he'd told me, the money he'd hidden, the betrayals that had nearly ended our marriage before it really began. How did you get past it? Daniel's voice was barely audible. Counseling. Brutal honesty. A joint bank account he had no access to until he'd proven himself trustworthy again. It took 3 years before I could fully trust him with money. And there was always a part of me, even decades later, that stayed slightly vigilant. But you stayed together. You were happy. We were. But happiness wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about him doing the work to change and me doing the work to believe that change was real. Some days were harder than others. Why didn't you ever tell me this? I wanted you to have good memories of your father. After he died, it felt wrong to complicate those memories with his past struggles. But watching you go through something similar, I realized I did you a disservice. You needed to know that struggling doesn't make you uniquely flawed. It makes you human. Daniel's eyes were wet. All this time I thought I was the disappointment. The one who couldn't live up to his legacy. Your father's legacy wasn't perfection. It was perseverance. It was facing his mistakes and choosing to be better. You're honoring him by doing the same thing. We talked until nearly midnight, excavating family history I'd kept buried, sharing truths that were painful but necessary. When I finally left, Walking the 3 blocks back to my house under streetlights and stars, I felt lighter somehow, as if telling Daniel about his father's struggles had released me from carrying them alone. The next morning, I woke to find Lily on my front porch, sitting patiently on the welcome mat with her backpack beside her. I opened the door in my bathrobe, alarmed. "Lily, what are you doing here? Does your dad know where you are? He said you live 3 blocks away." She pointed down the street. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. "See, I found you. Sweetheart, you can't just walk to my house alone. You're 4 years old." I ushered her inside quickly, already reaching for my phone to call Daniel. "Almost 5. She corrected me seriously. "And Daddy knows. He said I could come visit if I was careful at the streets." My call to Daniel went to voicemail. I tried twice more before finally texting him. "Lily is here. Please call me." 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Sorry, I was in the shower. Is everything okay? Lily walked here by herself." "Daniel, she's 4 years old. What were you thinking?" There was a pause. "She told you I said she could?" "Yes. I absolutely did not say that. I said maybe later when you're older you can walk to Grandma's house." She must have interpreted that as permission. I looked at Lily, who was examining my bookshelf with studied innocence. "We need to have a conversation about this. I'll be right there." He arrived within 10 minutes, clearly having thrown on clothes hastily. His hair was still damp, and he was wearing mismatched socks. Lily saw him through the window and her face fell, recognizing that she was in trouble. Lily Grace Mitchell. Daniel used her full name, a sure sign of serious parenting mode. "What did I tell you about leaving the apartment without me? You said I could go to Grandma's." Her lower lip trembled. "You said 3 blocks. I said when you're older you could walk 3 blocks to Grandma's house. Not now. Not when you're 4. Almost 5. Not helping your case, kiddo." Daniel knelt down to her level. "Do you understand why it's not safe for you to walk places alone?" Tears started rolling down Lily's cheeks. "I just wanted to see Grandma. I wanted to go to the park like she promised." I watched Daniel navigate this parenting moment, firm but gentle, explaining about stranger danger and traffic, and how much it would hurt him if something happened to her. He was good at this, I realized, patient and clear without being harsh. "I'm sorry, Daddy." Lily threw her arms around his neck. "I won't do it again." "I know you won't, because we're going to have a new rule. You don't leave our apartment without me until you're old enough for me to be sure you're safe. Understand?" She nodded against his shoulder. "Can we still go to the park?" "Yes. But first you need to apologize to Grandma for worrying her." Lily turned to me, her face streaked with tears. "I'm sorry I worried you, Grandma. I just wanted to see you." I pulled her into a hug, my own heart still racing from the scare. "I wanted to see you too, sweetheart. But your daddy's right. We need to keep you safe. Next time you want to visit, have your daddy call me first, okay?" "Okay." Crisis averted, we walked to the park, Lily holding both our hands and swinging between us. The park was busy with weekend crowds, children shrieking on the playground equipment, parents clustered on benches with coffee cups. Lily took off toward the swings, and Daniel and I settled on a bench with good sightlines to the whole playground. For a few minutes we just watched her play, her earlier transgression already forgotten in the joy of motion and freedom. "I'm sorry about this morning," Daniel said finally. "I should have been more explicit about the rules. She's at this age where she takes everything literally, and I need to remember that. You handled it well. Better than I would have at your age." "What do you mean?" "When you were 4, you once wandered off in a grocery store. I was frantic, had the whole store looking for you. Found you in the toy aisle completely absorbed in looking at action figures. You couldn't understand why I was so upset." Daniel smiled. "I don't remember that. You probably have 100 memories I don't know about, and I have 100 of you that you've forgotten. That's how it works. We carry these stories for each other." Lily had found another little girl on the swings and they were already chatting like old friends, the easy social grace of young children who hadn't yet learned to be guarded. It reminded me of Daniel at that age, friendly and open with everyone. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Dinner at my place tonight? Bring the whole crew. I want to get to know your son properly." I showed Daniel the text. "Feel up to meeting my best friend officially? The woman who knows all my secrets? Sure, sounds terrifying. She'll love you." Patricia has a soft spot for people who are genuinely trying to do better. That evening, we gathered at Patricia's house, a rambling Victorian she'd lived in since her divorce 20 years earlier. She'd set the dining room table with her good china, a gesture that meant she considered this a special occasion. Patricia had been my anchor through everything. The initial shock of Daniel's betrayal, the months of rebuilding trust, the complicated emotions that came with forgiveness. She'd listened without judgment, offered advice when I asked for it, and known when I just needed someone to sit with me in silence. Now she welcomed Daniel and Lily with the same warmth she showed everyone, immediately putting Lily to work helping set out napkins and making Daniel laugh with stories about my younger years. Over pot roast and mashed potatoes, Patricia asked Daniel about his new job, his hopes for the future, his experiences in counseling. She didn't shy away from difficult topics, but she approached them with such genuine interest that Daniel relaxed, answering honestly. "The hardest part is forgiving myself." He said it quietly, glancing at Lily to make sure she wasn't listening. She was absorbed in pushing peas around her plate, building some elaborate structure only she understood. "I know Mom has forgiven me or is working toward it. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm fundamentally broken somehow." Patricia set down her fork. "You want to know what I think?" Daniel nodded. "I think you're a man who made terrible choices when he was desperate and scared. I think those choices revealed something about where you were developmentally and emotionally, not something inherent about who you are as a person. And I think the fact that you're doing this hard work of change proves you're exactly the opposite of broken. How do you figure? Broken people don't do the work. They make excuses, blame others, refuse to take responsibility. You've done none of those things. You've owned your mistakes completely, you're making concrete amends, and you're building new patterns. That's not broken. That's brave." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I needed to hear that. We all need mirrors sometimes. People who can reflect back what we can't see in ourselves." Patricia reached over and squeezed his hand. "Your mother loves you fiercely. Never doubt that. But she also has every right to her complicated feelings about what happened. Both things are true." After dinner, Lily helped Patricia with dessert in the kitchen, leaving Daniel and me alone on the back porch. The evening was cooling, summer giving way gradually to fall. "Patricia's intense." Daniel said it with affection, not criticism. "She doesn't believe in wasting time on surface-level conversations. Says life's too short for small talk when you could be having real talk instead. I like her. She likes you too. I could tell." "How?" "She used her good china." That's Patricia code for someone matters. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to Lily's laughter drift from the kitchen. These were the moments I'd imagined during those terrible weeks after Daniel's betrayal. Ordinary family time. Simple connections. Proof that we could still be together without the past poisoning every interaction. "Mom?" Daniel's voice was tentative. "Do you think we're going to be okay?" "Really okay?" I considered the question seriously. "I think we're going to be different than we were before. But different doesn't mean worse. It might actually mean better because we're building something more honest now. No more secrets. No more secrets." I held his gaze. "That has to be our foundation going forward. Even when the truth is hard, even when it's uncomfortable, we tell each other. Deal." "Deal." Patricia appeared with slices of apple pie, still warm from the oven. Lily trailing behind her with chocolate ice cream smeared on her face. We ate dessert watching fireflies begin their nightly ritual. And for the first time since that grocery store encounter, I felt something settle in my chest. Not quite peace. Not yet. But the possibility of it. The hope that we were building something strong enough to hold the weight of our complicated history. As we walked home that night, Lily between us again holding both our hands, she looked up at the stars and asked, "Is this what family feels like?" Daniel and I exchanged glances over her head. "What do you mean, sweet pea?" "Like when everybody loves everybody and nobody has to leave." Her innocent observation carried the weight of her short life. The mother who'd left through death. The instability of constant moves and changing situations. "Yes," I said firmly. "This is exactly what family feels like. And we're going to stay here? In this town with Grandma? We're going to stay." Daniel's voice was solid, sure. "This is home now." Lily nodded, satisfied, and skipped ahead of us down the sidewalk. Daniel and I followed more slowly, giving her space to explore within our sight. Thank you. He said it softly. For giving us this chance. For believing we could be better. You're doing the work. That makes it easy to believe. Even when I mess up. Like this morning with Lily? Especially then. Because you're learning and adjusting and taking parenting seriously. That's all any of us can do. We reached my house first, and Lily ran up the porch steps to hug me goodnight. I breathed in her little girl's smell, grateful beyond words for her presence in my life. See you tomorrow? She asked hopefully. Tomorrow for sure. Maybe we can bake those cookies you wanted. Her squeal of delight made Daniel wince playfully. Way to get her all wound up before bedtime, Mom. That's what grandmothers are for. I watched them walk away, Daniel's hand protectively on Lily's shoulder, her chatter floating back to me on the evening air. When they turned the corner, disappearing from view, I went inside to my quiet house. But it didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like a home base, a central point in a constellation of connection. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for grace and frustration and growth. But tonight I had this. The knowledge that we were trying. That love, even complicated love, even love that had been tested and broken and slowly rebuilt, was still love. And sometimes that was enough. The first month of their residence in town passed in a flurry of adjustments. Daniel started his new job, throwing himself into learning the systems and making good impressions. Lily began kindergarten with Mrs. Patterson, who reported back that she was a delight, enthusiastic and bright and full of questions. I fell into a routine of having Lily 2 afternoons a week after school while Daniel worked. We'd do homework together, though kindergarten homework was mostly coloring and practicing writing her name. Then we'd bake or walk to the park, or read books curled up together on my couch. These were the grandmother hours I'd imagined but never had. Making up for lost time, Daniel called it, though I thought of it more as creating new memories that weren't shadowed by deception. On Wednesdays, Daniel would come straight to my house after picking Lily up from school, and we'd have family dinner. Nothing fancy, usually just pasta or chicken, but the ritual of it mattered. Sitting around my kitchen table, sharing the details of our days, learning each other's rhythms and habits. It was during one of these dinners that Daniel brought up something that had clearly been weighing on him. I want to take you to one of my counseling sessions. Not every week, but maybe once a month. My therapist thinks it would be helpful for you to see the work I'm doing. I paused in serving salad. You want me in your therapy sessions? Only if you're comfortable. I know it's a lot to ask, but I think it might help you understand where my head is at. And honestly, it might help me too. Having you there as a witness to my progress. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. A week later, I found myself sitting in a cozy office with earth-tone walls and comfortable chairs, facing a woman named Dr. Chun who had kind eyes and an air of competent calm. Daniel sat beside me, nervous energy radiating from his body. Daniel has told me a lot about you. Dr. Chun smiled warmly. I'm glad you were open to coming today. I'm interested in understanding his process better. The session was unlike anything I'd experienced. Dr. Chun guided Daniel through talking about his struggles with shame, his fear of repeating his father's mistakes, his determination to break generational patterns. She asked me questions too, about my feelings, my boundaries, my hopes for our relationship. Margaret, what would healing look like for you? Dr. Chen's question was direct but gentle. I considered it carefully, not forgetting what happened, but maybe getting to a place where it doesn't color every interaction, where I can trust Daniel's word without that little voice of doubt in the back of my mind. That voice of doubt is protective. Dr. Chen nodded. It's your psyche's way of keeping you safe. The question is whether it's serving you now or just keeping you stuck in the past. How do I know the difference? When the doubt is based on current behavior, it's protective. When it's based solely on past behavior that's no longer present, it's limiting. She looked between us. Daniel, what do you want from your mother? I want her to believe in me again. His voice cracked. I want to be someone she can count on. And Margaret, do you believe Daniel is becoming that person? I looked at my son, really looked at him. The man who showed up on time, who paid more than he owed, who called when he said he would, who was present and engaged with his daughter. Yes, I do believe that. Then tell him. I turned to Daniel. I believe you're becoming someone I can count on. I see the effort you're putting in. I'm proud of you. Daniel's face crumpled. And then we were both crying in that small office while Dr. Chan passed us tissues and smiled her knowing smile. This was the work. Not dramatic confrontations or grand gestures, but small moments of honesty that built trust one conversation at a time. After the session, Daniel and I got coffee at a shop near the therapist's office. We sat by the window watching people hurry past on the sidewalk, everyone absorbed in their own private dramas. That was harder than I expected. Daniel stirred sugar into his coffee mechanically. Hearing you say you believe in me, I didn't realize how much I needed that. I meant it. You're doing the work, Daniel. It shows. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together. Like I'm one bad choice away from sliding back into old patterns. That's normal. Recovery isn't linear. It's full of ups and downs. Did Dad feel like that? When he was dealing with his gambling? Every day, I imagine. He told me once that the urge never fully goes away. You just get better at managing it, at recognizing the warning signs and having tools to cope with them. What were his tools? Counseling like you. Gamblers Anonymous meetings, which he attended faithfully for years. And honestly, accountability. Knowing that I was watching, that I'd leave if he slipped again, kept him motivated. Would you have left him? I thought about it often, especially in those first few years. But I never had to make that choice because he never gave me a reason to. He did the work, Daniel. Just like you're doing. We finished our coffee and drove back to my house where Patricia was watching Lily. The normalcy of picking up my granddaughter, hearing about her day at school, making dinner together, all of it felt like a gift. That night, after Daniel and Lily had gone home, I sat down with my journal. I'd started keeping one after the initial betrayal, using it to process the complex emotions that came with forgiveness. Now I wrote about the therapy session, about seeing Daniel's vulnerability, about my own growing trust. Trust, I wrote, isn't given. It's earned through consistent action over time. Daniel is earning it. Slowly, steadily, one kept promise at a time. I closed the journal and looked at the calendar on my refrigerator. Lily's kindergarten play was next week. Daniel's 6-month work anniversary the week after that. My 63rd birthday, coming up in November. Small milestones marking the passage of time, proof that we were building a life together. The phone rang. Daniel's number. Mom. His voice was strained. I need help. Not money, just advice. Something happened at work today and I don't know how to handle it. Tell me. He explained a situation with his supervisor. A miscommunication about a deadline that had resulted in a tense confrontation. Daniel had felt attacked, had wanted to defend himself aggressively, but had stopped himself. I remembered what Dr. Chan said about pausing before reacting. So I left the room, went to my car and called you. What do? We talked through the situation, exploring his options, discussing how to approach his supervisor with accountability for the miscommunication, while also clarifying the expectations going forward. It was a normal work problem, the kind of thing that happened to everyone, and Daniel was handling it maturely. When we hung up an hour later, I realized something significant had shifted. Daniel had called me not because he needed me to fix his problem, but because he trusted my judgment. He wanted guidance, not rescue. That was growth. The next day he texted me. Talked to my supervisor. We worked it out. Thanks for helping me think through it clearly. That's what I'm here for. Over the following weeks, I noticed other shifts. Daniel started making decisions without seeking my approval first, a sign of growing confidence. Lily became more comfortable in my home, treating it like an extension of her own space. The three of us developed inside jokes and shared references, the small intimacies that define family bonds. Patricia observed it too. You're different with them now. More relaxed. I feel different. Like I've stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's trust rebuilding itself. She smiled. It's beautiful to watch. There were still hard moments. Times when Daniel's phone died and he was late picking up Lily, and I felt that familiar spike of anxiety. Times when he had unexpected expenses and I worried he'd ask for more money. But more often than not, those moments resolved themselves without crisis. Daniel would arrive apologetic with a plausible explanation. His expenses would be handled without my intervention. We were becoming, I realized with some wonder, just a regular family with regular problems. Not perfect but functional. Not without history but not defined by it either. The night before Lily's kindergarten play, Daniel invited me to their apartment for dinner. When I arrived, he was in the kitchen wearing an apron, actual cooking smells wafting from the stove. "You're cooking?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "Grandma." Lily ran to hug me. "Daddy's making real food. Not just chicken nuggets." "Hey, I make more than chicken nuggets." Daniel protested, but he was smiling. "Mom, I've been taking a cooking class. Online in the evenings after Lily goes to bed. Figured it was time to expand my culinary repertoire beyond pasta and takeout." I'm impressed. Dinner was simple but competent. Grilled chicken with roasted vegetables and rice. Daniel had even made a salad. We ate at his small dining table, and I watched him interact with Lily, patient when she complained about the vegetables, firm when she tried to leave the table without finishing her milk. After dinner, after Lily was in bed, Daniel pulled out a folder. "I have something to show you." Inside were financial statements, projections, savings goals. All the documentation of a life being carefully managed. "I've paid you $3,700 so far. At this rate, I'll have everything paid back in under 4 years. 3 years if I can maintain the $750 monthly payment without any major setbacks." "Daniel, you don't have to show me all this. I want to. I need you to see that I'm serious, that I'm organized, that I'm not going to suddenly fall apart and leave you stranded again." I looked at the neat spreadsheets, the careful calculations. This was who Daniel was becoming. Someone who planned ahead, who took responsibility seriously, who understood that trust was built through transparency. "I believe you," I said simply. His eyes filled with tears. "You have no idea how much that means to me." "Think I do." We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when people have moved through conflict into understanding. Outside, the city hummed with evening sounds. Inside, we were warm and safe and working towards something better. Tomorrow would bring Lily's kindergarten play. Next week would bring new challenges, new opportunities for growth. But tonight we had this. Progress measured not in grand gestures but in consistent effort. Love expressed not through perfect behavior but through committed presence. And that, I was learning, was the real work of family. Showing up day after day, choosing connection over resentment, believing in the possibility of change, even when change was hard and slow and sometimes painful. Daniel walked me to the door when I left. "Thank you for believing in me. Even when I didn't believe in myself." That's what mothers do. We hold the belief until our children are strong enough to hold it themselves. I drove home through quiet streets, thinking about the man Daniel was becoming and the man he'd been. They were the same person but also fundamentally different. Growth hadn't erased his past mistakes, but it had transformed what those mistakes meant. They were no longer defining moments but learning opportunities. Not endpoints but inflection points where his story could have gone one way but chose to go another. At home, I opened my journal again and wrote a single sentence. "We're going to be okay." Then I underlined it 3 times, making it true through declaration, through hope, through the stubborn belief that love could survive anything if both people were willing to do the work. Outside my window, stars wheeled slowly overhead. The same stars that had witnessed every moment of our family's history. The good times and the terrible ones. The betrayals and the forgiveness. The breaking and the slow, patient rebuilding. And tomorrow those same stars would rise on a new day. Another chance to choose love over hurt, connection over isolation, faith over fear. I closed the journal and got ready for bed, my heart lighter than it had been in months. Because we were doing it. Against the odds, despite the pain, we were making our way back to each other. And that was worth everything. 5 years later, I stood in Daniel's living room watching him sign the final payment. $50,000 fully repaid. He handed me the check with steady hands, no shame in his eyes anymore, just quiet pride. "We did it, Mom." Lily, now 9, hugged us both. "Does this mean Daddy's not in trouble anymore?" "Your daddy was never in trouble," I said, meaning it. "He was just finding his way home." Daniel smiled. "Thanks for not giving up on me." I looked at my family, whole and healed. That's what love does. It stays. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.